Dispatched to a Missing Child Report, Part 3, by Barkles52.
Hello, I'm Officer Barkley. Thank you so much for taking the time to drive up here and talk with us. The male reached out his hand. I'm Roger Fitz. This is my wife. Well, my former wife, Lisa. You mentioned on the phone that you needed to speak with us about our daughter's disappearance. Have you found... Roger could barely finish his sentence without choking on his own words. Have you found the body? No. I'm sorry to say that we don't have any developments relating to your daughter's disappearance. We actually have another disappearance of a young girl, 6 years old, and we think these two cases could potentially be related. Lisa looked confused. Well, what makes you think they're related? I'm sure there have been other children that have gone missing over these years as well. I took a deep exhale as I prepared to explain the eerie similarities to the Fitzes. Roger and Lisa were genuinely shocked, not only to hear about the latest disappearance, but also to find out that she was also named Emma. I continued. So, given these similarities, that's why we have asked you both to come speak with us. Do you have any ideas or inclinations as to what could have happened to both your daughter and the other Emma Fitz? Lisa repeatedly shook her head. She slowly muttered, "This damn house. I told you, it's a damn house." Roger consoled Lisa. Roger saw that I was intrigued by Lisa's comment, and he added, Lisa is not fond of that house. She always thought that house had to do with Emma's disappearance. I wasn't sure exactly where he was going with this, so I asked, "What do you mean when you say the house had something to do with the disappearance?" "Oh, I'm not saying I believe it, but Lisa here has always been adamant that house was, haunted, I guess. She had dreams about Emma disappearing several nights prior to her disappearance." I stopped taking notes and focused on actively listening. "How do you think the house contributed to her disappearance?" I asked Roger my question, although it was actually directed at Lisa. To my surprise, Lisa answered, "This house is pure evil." Lisa intently stared at me as she responded. I left the interview room and went back out to our break room to find Sergeant Oakley gulping down a cup of coffee. "Hey, Sarge, you're not going to believe the original Fitz's theory on what's happening to their daughter. They think the house is haunted." Cripes. Not another crazy couple. This town is filled with crazies who believe in that junk. Maybe I'm the crazy one for thinking they would be more helpful with this search. I know you searched the house earlier, but I want to go back over there with more men and do an intense search. It was hard not to take Sergeant Oakley's request as an insult to my ability to search a home, but given the intensity of this case, I understood his decision. I offered to be one of the officers who went back to the house, and Oakley was happy to hear my willingness. Tim, Peterson, and I all went back to the house. We searched in the attic, which was practically empty. We then worked our way down to the second floor and made our way through each room. We checked closets, dressers, underbeds, absolutely everywhere. We had no luck finding Emma. We continued onto the main floor and checked all of the kitchen pantry cupboards, closets, even the basket of blankets sitting next to the couch. Lastly, we worked our way down into the basement. It was a small basement that consisted of one main unfinished room with a toilet in the corner. It was common to have toilets in these old homes because, back when this was a coal mining town, the men would enter the house through the basement and use the toilet and shower before heading upstairs into the main home. I heard Tim quietly grumble, "What the then he followed up with a louder, "Guys, come check this out." Peterson and I headed over to where Tim was standing, just under the stairwell. Tim was shining his flashlight against a small cubbyhole door. The door did not have a handle on it. It only had a plain silver faceplate with no keyhole and no mechanism on it. I leaned in close to look into the crack between the cubby door and the frame and saw there was a deadbolt securing the door shut. "What the hell is right?" I said. "This cubby can only be locked from the inside." Peterson ran out to his cruiser to grab the breaching kit that he was assigned. The breaching kit included any and all tools we would need to open a door. He returned about 30 seconds later, and we shoved a crowbar-like tool into the cubbyhole. After Tim made a few attempts, he finally got the door open. We found a girl lying on the floor, holding on tightly to a stuffed bear. She wasn't responding when I asked her if she was all right. I crawled into the cubby space and dragged her out. She was wearing yellow overalls. I placed my pointer and middle fingers onto her neck and felt for a pulse. It was weak, but she had a pulse. I immediately called for medics and repeatedly attempted to get a response from her. She slowly opened her eyes, but was unable to speak. It had been nearly 24 hours since she was missing. Medics arrived on the scene, and I rode in the ambulance with her to the hospital. Tim and Peterson remained on the scene to gather evidence to determine if any foul play was involved. Sergeant Oakley met me at the hospital. He came up to me outside of Emma's room where she was being treated. He advised me, "I spoke with the guys, and it sounds like Emma locked herself into that cubby. There's no way anyone else locked her in there, and there was nothing inside that cubby that appeared upset. This was yet again the typical outcome of a child hiding in her own home, but for some reason, she must not have been able to get the lock back open." I replied, "Wow, that must have been so terrifying for her. Are you sure the parents had nothing to do with it? Why didn't they hear her scream? Why did her mom hand me that newspaper photograph instead of the real one?" Sergeant Oakley shrugged his shoulders. "Those old houses are built pretty solid. Maybe they couldn't hear her scream from all the way upstairs, especially if they had an AC unit running or other appliance. I agree it was weird she chose to give you a newspaper clipping, but that isn't a crime. These young millennials nowadays don't even keep printed photographs around the house anymore. Sure, they take pictures when they have babies and keep them in frames, but after that all they do is post them to social media. Maybe that was the most recent photograph she had." While still suspicious, everything Sergeant Oakley theorized was plausible. I waited at the hospital until Emma's parents came to see her. They went running into her room and cried while grasping their daughter. I let them become reacquainted with their daughter before asking Emma any questions. I waited until her parents were there because it is not advised to question a minor without their parents present. I introduced myself. "Hi, Emma. I'm Sarah, and I'm a police officer. Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?" Emma smiled and said, "Sure." "You gave your parents quite a scare with hiding in that cubbyhole. Why did you go down there?"
"I was playing hide and seek, but I couldn't open the door after I closed it. Then I fell asleep."
"And why did you go down into that cubbyhole?"
"Emma wanted to go in there."
Catherine corrected Emma.
"Emma, remember what we talked about before? Try not to refer to yourself as Emma. Just say I or me when you're talking about yourself, sweetie."
Emma responded,
"I know, Mom. I'm talking about the other little girl with the same name as me."
I quietly made my exit and headed back to the station. I told Sergeant Oakley that he was right. Emma was just a kid who found a place to hide and accidentally got herself locked in the cubbyhole, and he could tell Roger and Lisa that they were free to go back home.